News and views with myself, Salalo Makudiri. We're going to be switching gears now to, well, not switching gears essentially, but staying with the conversation around the ceasefire in Gaza. As it unfolds, many people are wondering what life is actually like for families on the ground. What's changed and what hasn't? And joining us now to help us unpack the situation, tell us how we can all play a role in supporting the people of Gaza is Munawwarah Ibrahim, Head of Communications at Islamic Relief South Africa. Munawwarah, Assalamu alaikum. Jazakallah so much. Welcome to Salam Media. Really appreciate you giving us your time.
Wa alaikum salam. Thank you so much for having me here today.
I think let's jump right into it. I think right now everyone is basically asking themselves, trying to figure out what life is like currently for families in Gaza. Islamic Relief South Africa does a whole lot of work in that part of the world. If you can just give us a bit of insight on what you guys are getting from your teams from Gaza.
Yeah. So, this escalation earlier in this month, it had been 2 years, and the situation for families in Gaza is nothing short of a humanitarian catastrophe. It's absolutely heartbreaking. It's now been more than 2 years, and the circumstances for families which were already dire at the outset have only worsened. Families have been torn apart. I think when someone thinks about family in Gaza, they are thinking of their lost loved ones, they are grieving their lost loved ones, and the pain is truly unimaginable. They are, as we know, living in a man made famine. They are being systematically starved. And even though there was the announcement of a ceasefire, we see it being violated repeatedly. Since the ceasefire was announced, at least 100 Palestinians have since been killed. The bombing has not stopped. We've also seen a huge impact in families. There are 40,000 children that have been left orphaned. Children are not having access to education. They've gone almost 2 years without schooling. It's absolutely heartbreaking. At the same time, Israel still controls approximately 58% of Gaza, and they've created sort of an unmarked yellow line, so to say, where Palestinians are at risk for lethal force if they even cross this. And all of these things are still in effect, even though there is a, so to speak, ceasefire. Gaza was promised and the world was promised 600 aid trucks a day, but that hasn't happened. Only a handful of aid trucks have actually gotten through, with all the major border crossings, such as the Rafah border, for example, still closed indefinitely, with very, very strict and stringent processes, especially for independent organizations like the UN, the World Food Programme, like Islamic Relief, and other similar organizations. So this is really, really a collective tragedy that's unfolding before the world's eyes. And the people of Gaza urgently need and deserve immediate and unfiltered humanitarian assistance and protection.
Mm, mm, mm. Um, with that in mind, everything that you've mentioned, what would you say are some of the most urgent needs for people in Gaza at this current moment?
So, before I even get into the needs, I think one of the main things, firstly, the people of Gaza need a permanent and meaningful ceasefire. They need guarantees that civilians will be protected, that they will stop this loss of life, and humanitarian access must be fully opened, with all the border crossings reopened immediately. That said, the needs are absolutely overwhelming. If we think the borders have been completely shut since May this year, and before that, it was very, very scarce. So now the most overwhelming immediate needs are, of course, the basics for survival. That's food, clean water, shelter, medical care. As I mentioned, we are dealing still with a man made famine. There are millions of people in Gaza who face severe food insecurity. At the moment, over 70% of the population has no reliable access to sufficient food. Shelter, which is another critical need. The 2 million people in Gaza, essentially the entire population, they've all been displaced at least once. So, and coupled with this, 90% of the homes in Gaza have also been damaged or destroyed. So the shelter is a huge, huge need. Healthcare is another absolutely heartbreaking situation. We know the health sector is in a dire state. Hospitals have been destroyed. The access to essential medication, medical supplies is critically low. Thousands of people are lacking access to the necessary medical treatment they need, especially the elderly, pregnant women, people who need acute or chronic treatment. It's absolutely heartbreaking, and it's really worsened with the shortages of medicine and fuel. And then, of course, if we think about all these escalations, everything that's occurred, the mental health needs are immense. The children and women especially are showing severe trauma. And I mean, if we think about the fact that we now have over 40,000 orphan children, the need for that is absolutely huge. So survival needs food, water, shelter, and medical care at the moment.
Mm, 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 mm. Um, Islamic Relief, I think, has been on the ground throughout this crisis, and often in some of the most difficult conditions. Can you give us a bit more insight about the work that you guys are doing in Gaza, and perhaps highlight one program that you feel has been particularly impactful during this very, very difficult period for the people of Palestine?
Yeah, so look, Islamic Relief has been supporting the families in Gaza since 1997, not since this recent escalation, but especially since this escalation began. And we have a team of Palestinians, local Palestinians on the ground, who have been dedicated to assisting others, their brothers and sisters in Gaza, while experiencing the same horrors, the same challenges, while also being displaced, injured, hungry. They are there, they are committed to assisting the people of Palestine. So since October 2023, we've distributed over 71 million hot meals. These are usually meals such as lentils, rice, meat, things that are really nourishing for our rights holders. We've also provided water to over 900,000 people. We've provided over 2.2 million medical items. And the program that I want to highlight here is our orphan sponsorship program. So we obviously, like I just mentioned, there are an insane amount of children that have been orphaned, 42,000 children to be exact. And our orphan sponsorship program has been a true lifeline for many children who have lost their parents. And this was the one program that we managed to implement continuously, regardless of whether the borders were open or not. And since the crisis began, we've grown the number of orphan children in our care from 8,000 children to now 22,000 children. And also providing psychosocial support to these children as well as other children and women, and that's over 100,000 women and children. The way our orphan sponsorship program works is basically, as you can imagine, inflation has made food insanely expensive. So what we do is we share through an e-wallet system. We give vouchers to our orphan children, and we can see that over 95% of them have in fact redeemed these vouchers. So it's really, really become a lifeline for these kids.
And I think that's very, very important. The most important question that I feel like needs to be answered at this current moment for our listeners who are listening at this current moment, and they're hearing all of this and they want to assist, they want to help. What does sponsoring an orphan actually mean for them, and what does it provide for the child?
So our orphan sponsorship program at the moment is about 14,400 Rand a year. And if you work it out, that's about 1,200 a month. If you average your daily coffee and croissant or coffee and muffin a day, it's really that. And if we sacrifice something like that to do something as wholesome and impactful as sponsoring a child, I think that's honestly life-changing. In Gaza right now, like I said, it's a lifeline. If someone sponsors an orphan, it's a direct and personal commitment to a child who has literally lost everything. And most heartbreakingly, their family, their parents, who are their sense of security. So, your sponsorship, for those who are listening right now, your sponsorship ensures that an orphan child receives food, they receive clean drinking water, clothing to keep them warm, shelter, they are on the brink of winter now, so clothing and shelter are extremely important. And then, of course, medication and emotional care. So, where possible, our teams are also providing educational classes and tuition. Like I mentioned, many schools have been destroyed, and hasn't been a consistent access to education. So, this is really an opportunity for these kids to rebuild a sense of normalcy in their lives. And with over 7,000 orphan children still waiting to be sponsored, the need has never been greater, genuinely. We can see, like I said, that more than 90% of children are redeeming their vouchers. So the support really is essential. It's a clear sign to them, to these children, that I have not been forgotten. I have not been left behind. There's someone somewhere. And the children of Gaza know South Africa. They know we care. They know about South Africa's case at the ICJ. And this is a reminder to them, I'm not forgotten and I haven't been left behind. So sponsorship for a child in Gaza gives them a chance to survive, to heal, and to dream again, to give them a chance to be a kid in this absolutely broken world.
Mm, most definitely. Finally, as we, mark this quote unquote ceasefire and essentially reflect on everything Gaza has endured, what would you say is your greatest hope moving forward as this new chapter of this genocide unfolds and then the conversations are becoming slightly different?
So, firstly, I think the greatest hope following this ceasefire is that it holds and that it becomes the world's never again. So that when our children, when future generations hear about Gaza, they remember this, they remember the pain, they remember the devastation, but also have that unwavering commitment to making sure that such atrocities, such devastation absolutely must never, ever be allowed to happen again. And this moment must serve as a reminder that the horrors faced by Gaza's children and families must be a turning point. We have to protect human dignity, we have to uphold justice and prevent such suffering from ever repeating. Of course, again, on the actual ceasefire, we are still calling for a permanent and meaningful ceasefire because civilians need to be protected, human life must be cared for and cherished, and there must be a care for humanitarian and aid workers. We're also calling for full and unhindered humanitarian access for independent organizations, like I said, to deliver comprehensive life-saving aid. Like I mentioned, these are food, medicine, fuel, protection, and essential services, and for this to be done at scale. We also, of course, want the safe return of Palestinians to their homes, and for the Palestinian people to truly be given a chance to rebuild without Israel violating the ceasefire in any way. We also want the end to militarization of assistance and the removal of barriers, so including the denial of registration for INGOs, things like that. So in a nutshell, we're really hoping that there'll be unrestricted flow of humanitarian aid so we can truly, like I said, continue to reach millions more people with food, with healthcare, with shelter. And so Islamic Relief can also start their rebuilding plans to help families to rebuild homes, to rebuild schools, hospitals, help the Palestinians to start getting that sense of normalcy back again. So for more information also about our work in Gaza, the listeners can visit our website at islamic-relief.org.za to hear more about our work, what we've done on the ground, and how listeners can get involved. That includes contributing to aid when it is able to get in, as well as at the moment our orphan sponsorship program.
Mm, mm. Well, there you have it. I think it was really insightful conversation, Munawwarah. Really appreciate you giving us your time, and we hope that our listeners continue assisting IRSA and the beautiful work that you guys are doing, not just in Gaza, but the world over.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Have a lovely day.
There you go. That was Munawwarah Ebrahim, Head of Communications at Islamic Relief South Africa, reminding us that while the guns may have fallen slightly silent for now, the real struggle for dignity and for survival in Gaza, particularly for the children, continues. And for those who would like to support Islamic Relief's humanitarian efforts, you can visit islamic-relief.org.za. I'm sure that their website will be up our screen, and you can be able to visit it and be part of making a difference, especially for the people of Gaza, who at this current moment, I think we can all agree, need it more than anyone else. You're listening to News and Views. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be with you right after this.